Thanks for joining us for Khari Free at Last on Bounce23 TV. I'm Khari Enaharo. Some say the African American community is hiding a big secret. It's called sexual abuse. How real is sexual abuse amongst African Americans? Advocates say 80% of black females have been sexually abused. Is this true or false? Joining me is TalkTainmentRadio.com host Earth Jallow, the Reverend John Coates, and brother man Tyrone Thomas. You know, y'all, what are y'all coordinating this blue or something? What's up with this blue?
We just have something going on.
Oh, yeah.
Me, Earth, and Mrs. Jones.
Oh, good gracious. Earth, you've been running around town. You've been all over the radio station, in the press, talking about, 100%, 90% of all black females have been sexually abused by black males. Is that true?
Now, I did not say 100%. I didn't say 90%. I said about 75 to 80%. Yeah, I did say that.
You did say 90.
I didn't say 90. I said about 75 to 80%. Yes, I'm sticking to that.
What's your data?
Listen, we wanted to talk about data. When they're doing the census, you're not knocking on the door and you're not offering that information. Oh, by the way, could you include that I was sexually abused? That's not happening. So I think if you want data, I'm going to, I guess, ask the women that every day that I see and that I talk to, and then I can give you those numbers.
Reverend Coates, wait a minute. Allegations come from all kind of places, but what do we have to back it up? Many people have gone to prison, and it was proven that it wasn't true. Some of the things that have been placed, and now some have gone to prison, and it was true.
Any pastor.
I mean, are we escalating this beyond what is real?
No, there's an issue that exists in very large numbers. Any pastor that has
What is large numbers? What do you mean large numbers?
It may be close to 75 or 80%.
Based on what,
Well, I'm about to give you a basis. The basis that anyone that has pastored for an extensive amount of time, my nearly 20 years, that I've encountered larger and larger number of women who in counseling now have said that, yes, they have experienced some form of sexual abuse.
You're telling me, Tyrone Thomas, I don't know where you stand on this, you're telling me that 75%, brother man, you're telling me that 75% of black females in America and in Columbus and all other places have been sexually abused?
I truly believe it could be that high, Khari.
Why?
I center around 65% because, you know, in the conversations and hearing people explain that people touch and feel and put their hands in places they shouldn't be.
You're doing a lot of, you all right?
Well,
It's
a very emotional subject in a sense because I've heard the stories. I've heard people say how the uncles, the nephews, the cousins, how you go to a family gathering and who is expected to protect the family is actually doing harm in the family. But when you hear young ladies explain how someone put their hands on them or touched them or verbally sexually assaulted them, that makes a big difference.
Did they tell anybody, Tyrone? Did they tell anybody in their family about it?
You know what, Khari, when you have the conversation, they're willing to talk about it. But as Earth said, nobody's asking the question. We have had undercover abuse in our neighborhoods forever.
Yeah. And
now that you have the homosexual thing going on, you have a bigger percentage that's growing because you got people that's predating your young people.
And then, you know, you talk about statistics, but you can't really do statistics when you have infant children. Who are they going to tell when they're 1, 2, 3, 4 years old that, you know, uncle or the babysitter or whoever
and many children are threatened as well, saying, don't tell.
Wait a minute. Do you understand what you are alleging here?
Yes.
Do you understand the implications of this?
Absolutely.
Do you understand? Wait a minute. Do you understand how widespread and what kind of image is being created?
Do we understand
really
the implication? Well, we already know what some of the numbers are. We know that our households are 70% headed by single women.
Correct.
So it could possibly, the single rate of black women, the lack of marriage taking place in our communities,
Protection of the
could that
fathers.
have anything to do with the amount of abuse?
I don't understand. I don't see the connection.
As a single mother,
hold
you
on.
can't watch your child 24 hours a day, especially if you work 1 or 2 jobs and you have to trust somebody else with your child. That means that that mother is not there. She doesn't know what's going on with her child. A lot of children are threatened. I will kill you. I will kill your family. I will hurt you, you know, your brother or whatever. And adultism places a lot of fear in children. And so if you don't have a close relationship with your mother, which I did not, then of course I'm not going to run and tell my mother.
And to answer your question, can an abused woman maintain a stable relationship?
What do you mean?
With a man? Does her abuse, the abuse that she was
if
victimized by,
80%
can she maintain a stable relationship?
If 80% of the people are being abused in our community, then 80% of our relationships are no good. That's what
we
I'm saying.
we got 70%
Stay
single
right there.
household.
What does this say about black males? Up next on Khari, Free at Last. Welcome back to Khari, Free at Last. What is sexual abuse? How do we know it when we see it? What impact does this have on the already destroyed image of black males? Joining me is TalkTainmentRadio.com host Earth Jallow, the Reverend John Coates, and Mr. Tyrone Thomas. Now, I went from brother man to Mr., so I'm giving you your props. You're working your way up. Look, we already got this tattered image of black males. First of all, maybe I think we need to clarify, what is sexual abuse? How do we know it when we see it?
Sexual abuse is when you are touched, fondled, or some other kind of way penetrated without your consent, when you are too young to give consent to that abuse, when you don't know, when somebody is touching you and it doesn't feel okay. That's abuse.
So incest is sexual abuse.
Molestation, sexual violations,
rape.
Rape. All of that is sexual abuse.
Okay, so you're telling me, I want to be clear.
Absolutely.
80% of the black females, Tyrone Thomas, now I'll come back to Earth Jallow on this. 80% of the black females in our community have either been victims of incest, they've been raped, or they've been touched inappropriately, or fondled.
Absolutely.
That's what you're telling me.
That's what I'm telling you.
And you're basing it on what?
I'm basing it off of, 1, my own experience. I'm basing it off of 2, the experiences of the other females in my family. Then I have to go to the extended.
Has there been any independent black studies, any independent study done by any black person who looked into this and come back and say conclusively the numbers that high? Reverend Coates.
Well, maybe that type of study needs to be done, and we can and we can begin that type of study by collaborating the data that's already available for those that have gone through the system in some way or another. Like they collect information on you in school. They collect information on you in your
hearing about it?
We're not just now here. We're not just hearing about it.
We're just really comfortable bringing it out and
I've
really
I've never seen any study that pointed that black females, 80% of black females.
Well, there's no studies, but we see the manifestation as of a result of the abuse.
What do you mean manifestation?
We talk about single parenting. That's a manifestation of it. We look at the condition of society.
What does single parenting have to do with sexual abuse?
Well, where's marriage have to do with it?
No, that's not the question. What does single parenting have to do with sexual abuse?
If you're sexually abused, you're suggesting that woman might not have or may have a level of comfortability with still being with a man or being in a relationship with a man. I believe that sexual abuse affects an individual emotionally.
So you're saying, no, we don't disagree on that.
Okay.
But what you're saying is that does it also turn women into lesbians? Is this why we're seeing the high rate of same-sex relationships in the black community?
When we talk to people that have chosen the alternative lifestyle, one thing that is constant in many of their stories is that they have been abused as children.
So
Sexual
they say
abuse.
that you're born that way. So what are you disagreeing with the notion that you're not born that way?
Well, I
That
personally don't.
that
I personally
sexual
don't.
abuse makes you that way?
I personally don't believe that, even though your president says you should love whoever you want to love. But I personally don't believe that.
Maybe he's doing
What do you mean you personally don't believe?
I don't believe you're born that way.
Why not?
Why not? Because
Homosexuals say they're born that way.
Well, that's what they say.
And you don't agree?
No, that's
Why?
not what John says. Then that's
Or
not
if
what the
they
Bible
was born-
says.
If they was born that way, they wouldn't keep flipping, flopping, and jumping back and forth.
They don't jump back and forth. They're marrying each other
You
now.
mentioned the
Some of them
effects
do.
on the women in our community, but you also got to remember,
Bring up the brothers.
that we have a high number of men that are seeking relationship with other men at the same time.
You're
have been
saying-
sexually
Johnny's no
abused.
longer on the download. Johnny's out on the parking lot.
Johnny's on the upload.
Wait.
Wait,
Why does
not
it have to be Johnny? Okay? It got to be
You're
Peter,
saying-
Paul,
you're
and Steve.
saying-
I mean,
You're saying that now it's not download, it's on the upload.
Because
so
of-
everybody
yeah.
knows it. Is that
Right.
what you're
And
this
that
comes
level-
wait a minute, hold on. This comes about as a result of sexual abuse?
Some of it, yes.
That level of mental illness and emotional trauma
You a psychiatrist now?
comes out.
We
Yeah.
talk-
Psychiatrist
we
now.
actually
It
we
comes
talked to
You just
people.
now finding out.
There's no collective data out there, but there's
Well, then,
individuals
if there's
that
no
have,
data
have,
to
have,
substantiate
yes,
what we're
there's
saying
data
for
out there.
Blacks.
If there's no data on black people to substantiate what you're saying, why are we putting that out there?
Because when I am in different cities in workshops that hold 100 to 200 people, and this subject comes up, and 95% of that room stands up, male and female, who have said that they have been sexually violated or abused,
There are
we have a
60
problem.
million black people in this country.
Absolutely.
60 million. You mean to tell me you're going to do a group of 200 and
I'm
assume,
saying-
wait a minute, assume based off of that group of 200, that's 60 million?
you don't say that.
know,
You don't say that. But you
come
don't
on.
say that. You don't say that to a pollster.
Thank you.
Who takes
Come
a sampling
on.
of a population, and even within my church, that's a sampling of a population.
it's a little bit more scientific than what I'm hearing here.
It's a sampling. You use the national
And go
significant
around after that and go to other places and then do the same thing. That appalled me. I knew then that we had a problem. That's when I called you and we did a radio show on this thing. How many people was blowing up that line? This is a real situation. When I'm going into these schools and these young girls that are now in high school, 10th, 11th, or 12th grade, are telling me that they've had this problem, that they have been violated over and over again. When I look and read the papers and do research and I see black mothers who have given their daughters, who have sold their daughters to men for sex, you can't tell me that we're not dealing with an epidemic
Which is
of
another
sexual
issue.
abuse.
Why is this happening, Tyrone?
Because
if it's
people-
happening, why is it happening?
People are looking to get beyond the healing stage. They're looking to
No,
say...
that wasn't
Sexual
the question.
deviancy.
That wasn't the
It's
question.
a
Sexual
problem.
deviancy.
It's
It's
a
happening,
society
Khari,
problem.
because it's been covered up for
So
so long.
long.
Yeah, but that doesn't
and now
tell
that,
me-
Now
no,
that the
no,
question
no.
comes out, it's out there.
Tyrone,
The percentages
why
are growing.
is it happening? That doesn't tell me. I understand it's being covered up.
happening because
why is
but
it
it's
happening?
happening
Because it's an issue in American society. It's the same issue that exists in the white community as well. Our community is open, is sexual, is freaky, and the messages that are being delivered, like for instance, I take hip hop culture for instance.
What do you mean freaky? I'm gonna ask you what you mean.
Yeah, freaky.
A
I'll tell you
reverend
about
saying freaky.
I'll tell you what freaky is. I'll tell you what
come
freaky
back
is.
to- But anyway, go on. No, go on back.
I'll take
it
hip
out.
hop, for instance.
All right.
Hip hop, every description of a man having sex with a woman in hip hop music is a violent description.
That's
Is a
kinda
violent description.
So is hip hop the reason why?
I believe that it certainly
Is hip-hop-
contributes.
is
It contributes.
hip-hop-
I could blame
Even
the sexual.
before hip-hop.
I could blame the sexual revolution and other things.
Even before hip hop, we had sexual violations going on of these children. I don't know
Is that
what
male
the
and
root
female?
Is. Male,
Male and
and
female.
female.
All right, then what percentage of the males have been sexually violated?
Oh my God! And
No,
that's
no,
a,
oh
that's
my
a
God,
whole other
don't get
question.
it.
But that's
What
a whole
percentage
other
of-
question
No,
because as a black male, you
See?
self-medicate. You're not
That's-
telling anybody that. You are wrestling with your sexuality. You're not going up telling your boy, "Hey man, the babysitter touched me." That's usually where it starts.
It needs to be
I still
evaluated.
ask the same
It
question.
needs to be
What
evaluated.
percentage of black males
Again,
in the African American community
I'ma
have
do
been
my own
sexually
research.
violated?
The frightening thing is that we don't know.
That's the scary.
That's the frightening
That's
thing.
the problem.
That's
We're
scary.
putting out information and we don't have a whole
Oh, I
bunch of
wish we
data
could
to
have
go.
people to
That's
call
scary
in.
to me, Tyrone
Well,
Thomas.
if you look at the number of people returning to our community, and
That's
they're-
from prison. That's incarceration. Stay right there. The Big Secret. Up next on Khari, Free at Last. Welcome back to Khari Free at Last. If these allegations of sexual abuse are true, why is it still a big secret shrouded in mystery in the African American community? What's the big secret? Why not come forward? Joining me is TalkTainmentRadio.com host Earth Jallow, Reverend John Coates, and Brother Tyrone Thomas. What's the big secret, Earth Jallow? Why is this still such a big secret? Why are so many people scared to talk about this?
One is taboo. Number two, we've always been taught what happens in the black family stays in the family.
What happens in the house
What
stays
happens in the house stays in the house. You do not take family business out to the street. That has been drilled in me
so
and
counseling
everybody
is no
else.
good in the black community?
So it's taboo. We don't
Going
think
to see a psychiatrist is no good in the
don't
black
have
community.
counseling in the black community, and that's why it's taboo.
And that's why it's self-medicated.
And that's what we're talking about,
It's
psychological
embarrassing.
counseling, clinical counseling.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's beyond just laying hands on someone when someone was violently violated as a child. Sometimes they need somebody to talk to.
So you're saying that the African American community is carrying a big secret, Tyrone Thomas?
They're no
Is that
longer
what you're saying?
carrying it because they have the social media to put it out there. You know, they have the social media to say, I was touched last night. What do I do about it? And
Yes.
now you have 13, 14 other people saying, it happened to me too last night. Let's talk about it. So the conversation's out there, but still we don't have the treatment
Reverend
of the
John
illness.
Coates, why is it still shrouded in mystery in our community?
Because as Irv said, it's taboo. We don't
What
talk
do you mean
about
taboo?
We don't talk about sex. We don't talk about these problems. We don't want to be branded or labeled negatively.
You mean to tell
that
me
we're
I
treated.
can't come to the church
and
and stand up
should.
before the church and
Oh,
confess
no,
to something?
No, you better not. You better not. It'll be put on broadcast.
For what?
It'll be put on broadcast.
That's if
someone,
coming to
and
get
as a
healed.
result of your
Judgment.
public confession, you better hope someone else doesn't try to approach you to abuse you some more.
Exactly. Exactly.
You mean there are abusers in the church?
Oh, certainly.
All
Most
over
certainly.
the place.
Most certainly.
Is
all
the
over the
black
place.
church hiding sexual
Oh, the black church is hiding a lot of stuff.
Why?
Including it's the abortions that take place that's funded by by black church folks.
I knew you were gonna get there.
But it's so
Yeah,
true. And I
you
certainly
already
was,
knew.
you know. And you know, it's the sexual revolution. It's Susan B. Anthony and Margaret Sanger's fault.
And you know, you have entertainers. Monique has came out and said that she has been violated. Tyler Perry has been violated by his own
Now we know
father.
why Tyler wears a
maybe,
dress.
well, maybe the
Yes, she was.
Well, that's a good question. Why does he wear a dress? But anyway, the question is maybe this is just
Why do
a
all black
fashion.
actors have to wear a dress at some
Yeah,
point
that's
to be
Any of them,
successful?
That's a whole
Absolutely.
nother show. What about the fact that it could be a fashion trend? Maybe people are just saying it because everybody else is saying it.
Let me explain.
Here's what I'm saying. When we set these standards for abuse, are we really clear that this much abuse is going on? Do you realize what you're saying? Again, I ask you.
For me, you said, is it a trend? Nobody wants to fit into a group of people that have to struggle every day with being sexually violated. That is a mental thing that you have to deal with every day. Every day I have to work on myself, not to fall back into some of my own
If it's
habits.
as devastating as we all know it is, why in our community, Tyrone, aren't we talking? We don't hear preachers preaching about this. We don't hear teachers teaching about this. We don't hear anybody prominent in the community on a day-to-day basis bringing this up. Every now and then somebody might come out and say it. Why?
Predators don't talk about their
Thank you.
action, they act out. And if you put a
I'm talking about the
in a-
victims of predators, Tyrone.
But that's just it, Khari.
Yeah,
How
victims.
You don't wanna
gonna say
influence.
my
They're
pastor-
victims.
My
Like-
pastor touched
Right.
me. My
My
mother's
uncle,
boyfriend
my
touched
father.
me. My favorite uncle touched me.
That
my,
is
my
embarrassment.
cousin
It is,
who
was
protects
it my
me
fault?
raped me last
Is
night.
anybody going to believe me? You have to understand that we don't have great relationships with our mothers. African American women, a lot of us don't have the relationship that is necessary and we should have with our mothers. So who are you gonna tell? Who are you gonna tell?
And let's not
Wait
forget,
a minute,
the
you
black
got two
man
daughters. Wait a minute,
who's-
you've got two daughters. You've got a daughter.
I got two
Is what she
daughters.
said true? Are the relationships between African American daughters and mothers that
Y'all better
strained?
talk about it.
Is that true from what
in
you've
some
seen?
cases, because you have a big influencer out there called the media
In
that
what- you
influence
say
our
in
children.
some cases, what,
well,
10%,
in my house
20%?
is my house is not, because we teach our daughter to have certain standards that we hold true, that hopefully she'll carry with her throughout her life, that will protect her from predators.
Tyrone, you have $2. I mean, yeah.
He might got $2.
I got $2 and two daughters.
Yeah, but you
And
got
if
two
they know I
daughters.
got $2, I don't have
There
no.
goes your money, yeah. But
But here's the thing. my daughters have the conversation because they have been taught what it is when they've been taught how to avoid being violated and what the description is. And so now their friends come to them and tell them, hey, this happened to me. What would your dad say? What would you say? Okay? And then the other thing is they're being violated and they're trying to violate.
Where is this sickness coming from? I keep asking.
I keep saying
a
sexual
disrespect.
deviancy. When you don't have the morals and values that John has just talked about in your home, and then you can't watch 24 hours a day, you think that your brother is not going to touch your child, then, you know, that is where it comes from. People are sick. We are not dealing with mental health issues
So
in our community. It's
we're
a bunch
giving
of things.
people a license to sexually abuse.
Certainly.
Is that
Every
right?
time.
Is that what we're doing?
Look at R. Kelly.
Primetime television, Beyonce, Knowles,
Like at the Grammy Awards.
the Grammy
Yeah.
Award,
Carter.
gets up with a string up her behind and does a nasty lap dance of sorts. You know, it's on prime time now.
Prime time.
Madonna's kissing and grabbing.
All
and
kinds of
that-
stuff
all
is
that
going on.
And this is, but yet who's sitting there letting your children watch that?
Absolutely.
Who's doing it?
Absolutely.
It's called reality and entertainment.
No,
Shush.
what you're
No
telling
fine
me is
line
that
anymore.
parents in the
We're
African
not
American
parenting.
community have no control over what's going on.
Very
Not
well,
parenting.
but they very well may
Not
So
not.
therefore,
parenting.
this stuff is tolerated and permitted
Absolutely.
and covered up. Is that right,
Absolutely.
John?
That's so, it's so right, and there's so much lack of control. You don't know what's going on in other people's households.
That's
like
right.
Nicole's household, we don't do sleepovers.
That's right.
Okay? And we don't do them.
Because you don't.
Because we don't know.
We don't.
So what do we do to correct this, Irv? Quickly.
We must educate our children. Let them know that by telling you are snatching off that cloak
Stay
of
right
silence.
there. I'm going to give you a chance to say more. Saving the Children. Up next on Khari, Free at Last. Welcome back to Khari, Free at Last. What can we do to make the children safe and the people free to talk about this critical issue in our community? Joining me is TalkTainmentRadio.com host Irv Jallow, the Reverend John Coates, and Tyrone Thomas. Irv, I'm gonna kick it to you.
Okay.
All right, we wanna save the children.
That's
number
right.
one. Number two, we wanna make this issue open so people can deal with. What must we do to do this? What are the steps we have to take?
One is to snatch off the cloak of silence. That means tell. You have to tell, because that way, if you tell, they can't hide anymore. They're out in the open. Number two, I think parents need to lay down. This is what sexual violations is. If somebody touches you here,
Have that talk.
Taught, teach it, and don't give little your little poom. Name them, give them their names so your children will know. I also think that knowing who your children are with, like John said, you know, if as far as sleepovers, I have two daughters, so instead of them going over to sleep at somebody's house, all the children come here because I know what's going on in my house. I know your children are going to be safe.
And there's no children coming over my
And
house.
see, I can understand your situation.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
now
a man.
what else can they do?
Also,
Parents that are dealing with this.
parents that are dealing with this, reach out, get your child some counseling. This is a lifelong
Should they
thing.
go to the law?
They should go to the law. Tell on Uncle Chester. Tell on that molester. I don't care who it is. If it's your father, your uncle, your aunt, your niece, I don't care. Males and females, please tell somebody.
Now, after you've done all that, what change will there be?
There will be a change that, okay, the next child won't be violated by Uncle Chester.
And
You
so it
understand?
stops supporting that behavior in the
stops
community?
supporting that behavior in the family. It stops supporting that behavior in the community. I'm not saying throw away your family members. What I am saying is that when there's a family gathering, Uncle Chester is there, there's 4 brothers
Call
that
out
can be
Uncle
trusted.
Chester.
No, watching Uncle Chester. Chester don't go to the bathroom by himself.
My goodness, Chester's in trouble.
'Cause Chester's a
Reverend-
molester.
You better know it.
Chester's a molester. Let me ask you this. What can the black church do? Because it's been awfully silent on this. What can it do?
The black church sits in a very unique position because the majority of members in the black church are black women. So we need to aggressively find out how many of our parishioners have suffered from some type of sexual abuse, and then start to put together programs and counseling to help bring our people back whole and to bring some healing.
Once that comes out, will we see a change in the behavior of our relationships between males and females, or will hate intensify? What would you say?
Well, first of all, it won't be suppressed anymore.
Thank you.
Because maybe the relationships are bad because of the
abuse.
An experience that's suppressed that acts out in another way. So healing brings about healing, not just in oneself, but also in relationships.
Yes, absolutely.
Tyrone, how important is healing in our
The black church
community?
has to start from the inside and remove the people that lead the flock down the wrong path. And then the membership has
That includes
to be
the ministers,
accountable
choir
as
members,
as the
deacons,
leadership.
etc. Anybody in any position that's involved in that has to be removed.
Yes,
Is that what you're saying?
Pastor Chester, Deacon Chester, Choir Director Chester.
And the women have to stand up and take a stand for your children and for your daughters.
Are women abusing men? Women, are women sexually abusing men?
A lot of my male friends who have been touched, they don't look at it as sexual abuse back then, but they do now that they're older. When the female babysitter would come over to babysit, I know a lot of brothers
What effect does that
have
have on men that are sexually abused?
It's an Antoine Fisher type of story who was sexually abused by a female. You know,
What effect does it have, though, on
It's
your
psychological.
psyche?
It could cause one to act out. It could cause one to be violent. It could cause one not to be able to relate to women positively. It may cause one to be an abuser.
Yes.
My goodness. So what you're saying is that once we deal with it, Tyrone, and we got about 15 seconds, once we deal with this and come out positive, it should change many things. Is that right?
Yeah, but we got to address one more field. We got to address the athlete. Being a sexual abuser doesn't make you a better athlete. Putting your hands on women, making the women trophies, making the little boys trophy doesn't make you a better athlete.
I appreciate that. Thanks to TalkTainmentRadio.com host Earth Jallow, the Reverend John Coates, and Tyrone Thomas. Thank you for watching Khari Free at Last on Bounce23 TV.